My name is Chelsea, I'm 19 years old, and I woke up in a hospital room with third-degree burns covering 30% of my body, my throat raw from smoke inhalation, and my father sitting beside my bed telling me that our house had burned down and my mother was dead. Everyone kept saying I was lucky to be alive. Lucky. That word made my stomach turn because nothing about this felt lucky. The way my dad delivered the news. It felt rehearsed. Like he'd practiced those exact words in a mirror. Sweetheart, there was nothing we could do. The fire moved too fast. Your mother. She didn't make it out. You're the only survivor. His voice was steady. Too steady. When someone loses the love of their life, their voice should crack, right? Their hands should shake. But Dad sat there like he was reading from a script. If you're watching this and you've ever had that gut feeling that something isn't right, hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about the people closest to you. 3 days into my hospital stay, while Dad was getting coffee, a police officer I'd never seen before slipped into my room. Detective Martinez. She was young, maybe early 30s, with this urgency in her eyes that made my already racing heart pound even harder. She leaned in close, so close I could smell her coffee breath, and whispered, "Chelsea, I need you to listen very carefully. This fire. It wasn't random. And the person you trust most in this world isn't who you think they are." I tried to speak, but my throat was still raw, still burning. She continued, "I can't say more right now. Too many ears. But when you're ready for the truth, and I mean really ready, you let me know. Because what happened to your mother? What happened to you? Someone wanted it to happen." She slipped me a card with just a phone number on it, no name, and walked out just as Dad returned with his coffee. He smiled at me, that same calm, collected smile, and asked if anyone had come by. I shook my head. I lied. And that was the moment I realized I was afraid of my own father. Let me paint you a picture of what it's like to be trapped in a hospital bed, questioning everything you've ever believed. The smell of antiseptic mixed with burned skin. The constant beeping of machines. The way the fluorescent lights made everything look cold and sterile, like a morgue. My body was broken, covered in bandages, hooked up to 4 drips and oxygen monitors. But my mind? My mind was racing at 1,000 miles per hour. Every time Dad touched my hand, I flinched. Every time he said "I love you," it sounded wrong. Every time he talked about Mom, about how much he missed her, about how we'd get through this together, I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't move without pain shooting through my entire body. I couldn't speak above a whisper. I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. I was completely helpless. And the person I was supposed to trust most in the world. I was starting to believe he might be the reason I was there. You know what's funny about grief? It's messy. It's unpredictable. It makes you cry at random moments, makes you angry, makes you bargain with God. But Dad? Dad was handling Mom's death like he was managing a business merger. He had already contacted the insurance company. Already made arrangements with the funeral home. Already started talking about moving forward and rebuilding our lives. This was 4 days after Mom supposedly burned to death, and he was talking about moving forward. I remember when our dog died 3 years ago, Dad cried for 2 weeks. He couldn't even look at the dog's favorite toy without breaking down. But his wife of 26 years dies in a house fire, and he's making practical decisions and speaking in calm, measured tones. That's when a memory hit me. Last Christmas, Mom and Dad had this fight. I was in my room, but I could hear them through the walls. Mom was saying something about "I know what you did and I'm not going to keep quiet about this anymore." Dad's voice was too low for me to make out, but whatever he said made Mom go completely silent. The next morning, they acted like nothing happened. But Mom looked scared. I used to think Dad was just being strong for me. Now I was starting to realize that wasn't grief in his eyes when he looked at me. It was relief. Relief that I had survived, sure. But maybe also relief that Mom hadn't. On my 7th day in the hospital, a nurse accidentally gave me Mom's personal effects instead of mine. Just for a few minutes, but long enough for me to find something that made my blood run cold. Mom's phone. It was damaged from the fire, but still partially functional. There were text messages from 2 days before the fire. Messages to her sister Karen that said, "I found the life insurance papers. Chelsea was right to be suspicious. I need to get her away from him. If something happens to me, look for the." That's where the message cut off. The phone died in my hands. I tried to turn it back on, tried charging it with my phone charger, but nothing worked. When the nurse realized her mistake and came back for the bag, I pretended to be asleep. But she took everything, including the phone. The next day, I asked Dad if I could see Mom's things, maybe keep something of hers. He told me everything had been destroyed in the fire. Everything. When I mentioned her phone, he looked confused and said the police never found a phone. Detective Martinez's card was hidden in my pillowcase. I called the number that night. The phone existed, she confirmed. It was logged into evidence. But it disappeared from the evidence locker yesterday. These things don't just disappear, Chelsea. Someone with access made it disappear. That's when I understood, Dad hadn't just planned to survive the fire. He'd planned to outlive the truth. I stopped asking questions. I stopped looking suspicious. I stopped fighting. When Dad talked about the future, I nodded. When he made decisions about where we'd live, what we'd do, I agreed with everything. When he suggested grief counseling, I said that sounded helpful. When he wanted to scatter Mom's ashes at her favorite beach, I said that's what she would have wanted. I became the perfect, traumatized daughter. Compliant. Broken. Grateful to have him. But inside, I was taking notes. I was watching. I was learning his patterns, his habits, his tells. The way he checked his phone exactly every 37 minutes. The way he always positioned himself between me and the door. The way he monitored every visitor, every phone call, every conversation. I realized Dad wasn't just controlling the narrative about the fire. He was controlling my entire existence. And he thought I was too traumatized, too dependent, too grateful to notice. But inside, I was taking notes. I was watching. I was learning his patterns, his habits, his tells. The way he checked his phone exactly every 37 minutes. The way he always positioned himself between me and the door. The way he monitored every visitor, every phone call, every conversation. I realized Dad wasn't just controlling the narrative about the fire. He was controlling my entire existence. And he thought I was too traumatized, too dependent, too grateful to notice. If he wanted a ghost, I'd haunt him quietly. But I'd make damn sure I was the last thing he'd ever see. 3 weeks after being discharged from the hospital, Dad took me to see the remains of our house. Everything was ash and twisted metal except for one thing, Mom's garden shed. It was far enough from the main house that it had only suffered minor damage. Dad said it was too dangerous to go inside, but while he was talking to someone from the insurance company, I snuck in. Mom had hidden a fireproof safe behind her gardening supplies. Inside was a USB drive labeled for Chelsea's eyes only and a letter in Mom's handwriting. "Sweetheart, if you're reading this, then something has happened to me, and your father is not who we thought he was. The USB contains recordings of phone calls, copies of financial documents, and evidence that your father has been planning to kill me for over 2 years. He took out a life insurance policy on me worth $2 million. He's been slowly poisoning me with antifreeze, that's why I've been so sick. The fire is plan B if the poison doesn't work fast enough. I love you more than life itself. Get this to Detective Martinez. Trust no one else. The USB contained audio recordings of Dad talking to someone about making it look accidental and eliminating loose ends. There were bank records showing large cash withdrawals. There were internet searches on his computer for house fires, accelerants, and survival rates for smoke inhalation. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated erasure. Dad hadn't just wanted Mom dead. He'd wanted her erased so completely that no one would ever question what really happened. But he'd made one mistake. He'd assumed I would die in that fire too. I thought I was being careful, but Dad started to notice changes. Subtle ones, but he was a predator, and predators notice everything. You seem different, he said one morning over breakfast. Stronger. More aware. I'm healing, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Physically and emotionally. But his eyes were studying me like I was a problem he needed to solve. He started asking more questions about my day, my phone calls, my trips to physical therapy. He installed a tracking app on my phone for safety. He suggested I might be more comfortable staying home instead of going out so much. The cage was getting smaller. One night, I caught him going through my room. When I asked what he was doing, he said he was looking for something of Mom's that he thought I might have taken from the hospital. But I knew he was looking for evidence that I knew the truth. We started having these conversations that felt like chess matches. Every word had double meanings. Every question was a trap. I'm so grateful we have each other, he'd say, and I'd hear the threat underneath. Me too, Dad. I don't know what I'd do without you, I'd respond, and we'd both know we were talking about survival. He didn't know what I had. But he knew I wasn't afraid anymore. And that terrified him. I called Detective Martinez from a payphone outside a grocery store. I have everything, I told her. Audio recordings, financial records, everything. But I need to know, how many other people is he going to hurt if we don't stop him now? Chelsea, what you're suggesting is incredibly dangerous. If he even suspects you know the truth. He already suspects. I can see it in his eyes. This is our one chance. If we don't move now, I'm going to disappear just like Mom did. The plan was insane. I would wear a wire and get Dad to confess. If it worked, we'd have enough evidence to put him away forever. If it didn't, well, Detective Martinez made it clear that the department couldn't officially protect me if things went wrong. If this worked, I'd be free, I told her. If it didn't, I'd disappear just like Mom. But at least someone would know the truth. We had one shot. Dad was planning something, I could feel it. The way he'd been looking at me, the phone calls he thought I couldn't hear, the life insurance papers I'd seen him reviewing. I wasn't going to wait around to be his next victim. That night, I broke down. I mean really broke down. Crying, shaking, the whole performance. Dad, I can't do this anymore, I sobbed. I keep having these dreams about Mom, these nightmares about the fire. I need to know what really happened that night. I need the truth, even if it hurts. He sat down beside me, pulled me close like the loving father he'd always pretended to be. Sweetheart, sometimes the truth is more painful than living with questions. But I can't live with questions anymore. Please. I need to understand what happened to Mom. I need to understand why she didn't make it out when I did. That's when I saw it. That flicker of pride in his eyes. The ego that had been eating at him for months, having to play the grieving husband when what he really wanted was to brag about how clever he'd been. You really want to know? He asked. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Your mother was going to destroy our family, he began. She found out about some business dealings that could have sent me to prison. She was going to leave me, take you with her, ruin everything I'd built. I couldn't let that happen. The wire taped to my chest was picking up every word. The antifreeze was supposed to look like a heart attack. Clean, simple, no questions asked. But she figured it out somehow, dumped it out when she thought I wasn't looking. So I had to try a different approach. He described the fire like it was a work of art. How he'd disabled the smoke detectors in Mom's bedroom. How he'd used an accelerant that would burn off before investigators could find it. How he planned the whole thing for a night when I would be sleeping over at a friend's house, but I'd come home early with the flu. "You weren't supposed to be there," he said, almost fondly. "When I realized you were in the house, I had about 30 seconds to decide whether to save you or let you burn with her. I chose you because you're my daughter, and because I knew you'd never suspect me." He didn't confess out of guilt. He confessed because he believed he'd already won. That's when Detective Martinez and 3 other officers came through the door. "Richard Thompson, you're under arrest for the murder of Linda Thompson and the attempted murder of Chelsea Thompson." The look on Dad's face. I will never forget it as long as I live. Confusion, then shock, then rage so pure it made his whole body shake. "You little bitch," he snarled at me, lunging forward before the officers restrained him. "I saved your life. I chose you over her. You ungrateful." But I just stood there, calm and detached, watching as they read him his rights. For the first time since waking up in that hospital bed, I felt powerful. I felt in control. He lost control. And control was the only thing he'd ever loved more than himself. Here's what I never told Detective Martinez. Here's what I never told anyone. I knew. I'd known for 3 years that Dad was slowly poisoning Mom. I'd seen him putting something in her coffee, watched her get sicker and sicker. I tried to tell Mom, but she said I was being paranoid, that grief over my grandfather's death was making me see things that weren't there. So I started documenting everything. Taking pictures, recording conversations, gathering evidence. I was building a case against my father before he ever planned that fire. The night of the fire, I wasn't supposed to be home, but I came back early because I knew something was going to happen. I hid cameras throughout the house. I wanted to catch him in the act. What I didn't expect was for him to burn the house down with me in it. I should have died that night. The only reason I survived was because I'd been sleeping in Mom's room, she'd been having nightmares and asked me to stay with her. Dad didn't know I was there when he set the fire. The placement of the accelerant, the disabled smoke detectors, everything was designed to kill Mom while making it look like I was safely somewhere else. But here's the real twist, Detective Martinez wasn't some random cop who stumbled onto the truth. She was my contact. I'd been feeding her information for months before the fire. We'd been building a case against Dad together. The fire just accelerated our timeline. They thought this was my escape. It wasn't. 2 years later, I live in a different state under a different name. Dad is serving life without parole. Mom's insurance money went to a foundation that helps victims of domestic violence and attempted murder. I keep Mom's wedding ring on a chain around my neck. Not because I miss her, though I do, every day, but because it reminds me that some people survive fires, and others learn how to light them. I sleep through the night now. I date. I laugh. I've even learned to trust again, carefully and selectively. But there's a part of me that will always be that girl lying in a hospital bed, realizing that the person who was supposed to protect her had tried to kill her. Some people would say I got justice. Some people would say I got revenge. I say I got something better, I got the truth. So here's my question for you, if someone you trusted completely, someone who was supposed to love and protect you, tried to erase you from existence, would justice be enough? Or would you want them to know that you were smarter, stronger, and more dangerous than they ever imagined? Let me know in the comments what you would do. And if this story made you think about the people in your own life, maybe it's time to start asking some hard questions. Some secrets burn everything to the ground. But sometimes, you're the one holding the matches. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will make you question everything you think you know about human nature. Trust me, you're going to want to hear what I share next.